Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Zeal or No Zeal. Today, up on the chopping block is Cuphead. This game, published by Studio MDHR, is an action platformer boss rush with a couple of platforming levels thrown in. Does this game excite? Find out on this episode of Zeal or No Zeal. The first thing I noticed about Cuphead is that it was hard. I had to fight a gauntlet of 20 or so bosses. Sure, I had unlimited retries, but the stages themselves had multiple phases, and I typically had to go through around 2 minutes of a fight without dying. The stakes were consistently high, yet I was never overwhelmed. In fact, I actually enjoyed these high stakes. The constant bombardment of new and difficult attacks immediately appealed to me, especially because Cuphead features relatively quick retries. Cuphead brought a significant level of challenge that I was eager to take on. My excitement was amplified because the game is fair. With a few exceptions, every point of damage I received in Cuphead felt like I deserved it. Either I misread an animation or I reacted improperly. It was as simple as that. Regardless, feeling in control of my depth helped keep me from losing confidence in the game upon failure. In fact, despite dying constantly, I never found myself getting frustrated at all. I think I remained calm because each boss telegraphs upcoming attacks clearly, and each boss fight is divided into clear sections. First, the telegraphing was paramount for me to grow and develop as a player. Each attack has a unique animation, clearly distinct from any other attack, and they were immediately recognizable. However, in addition to this visual clue, there were often audio cues too. It was neat to see the different ways the developers hinted at upcoming attacks. Similarly, I enjoyed how each boss was divided into clear sections. I was able to recognize my growth more efficiently since I saw a visual representation of how much I was improving. I even felt it when I hardly improved. Moreover, the clear segments also helped me better understand boss patterns. Each phase looks visually different, which makes it easier for me to process that each has different attacks too. Overall, both the telegraphing and division within the fights were incredibly rewarding, and I enjoyed how the developers implemented them into the game. I further enjoyed the game because the fights feel so different from each other. Even though each had me dodging attacks and shooting at the boss, I needed to consider so many different elements. For example, in one fight I had to match cards in the background, whereas in another I had to watch out for shark attacks. These constant influxes of new mechanics were interesting and kept me locked in throughout. Each one, regardless of complexity, pushed me to pay close attention to my surroundings and further immersed me into the game. Cuphead also maintains this level of control in the movement. My movements were consistent, predictable, and precise. I could jump, dash around, and of course, shoot my enemies. The movement was simple but effective, especially since I wanted to pay so much attention to my enemies. There was only one part of the game that was not so simple. I could parry enemy attacks. With good timing, I could bounce on enemies or enemy projectiles for an additional super meter charge. It was an incredibly solid mechanic, and one I thoroughly enjoyed. Even my attacking capabilities were interesting. I could choose between 6 different guns, but I could only equip 2 of them at a time. This forced me to weigh my decisions and tailor my build for each boss. While I never felt entirely underpowered, I did have some strong preferences and found myself altering my loadouts more than I would in typical games. I liked the strategy that I used in designing my loadout, and thought the varied weaponry was dynamic and interesting. Even the running gun levels were entertaining. To be fair, I didn't like these levels as much as the boss fights. They were still tricky but far less rewarding, and I never found myself exploring the growth that I felt in a boss fight. There were only a couple of them, but they were enjoyable changes of pace. Still, the most interesting part of the game were those boss fights. Finally, another one of the most important aspects of Cuphead is how it rewarded me. Of course, I was excited seeing my progress rise at the end of the level, but even after that, I was given a rating. It broke down my performance by the time it took me to complete a stage, the number of remaining health points I had, and the number of successful parries I completed. It was engaging, and those metrics added even more value when I played the game again. Plus, I thought the timing one was especially significant. Since each boss had an incentive for completing it quickly, there were very few segments when the boss was invincible, and I had to wait. I was constantly engaged, and it made the experience so much more powerful. The boss designs and even the structure of how they reward me for defeating them is excellent, and it engaged me even further. Overall, Cuphead is an excellent game. I enjoyed how it handled its difficulty, seamlessly blending challenge with fairness. Moreover, the bosses were engaging all throughout. I did not have to wait to attack, and I was constantly pushed to perform at a high level. I definitely had a lot of fun playing Cuphead, and it certainly incited zeal. Thank you so much for watching.